in the last panel, we essentially looked into the future and talked about where things are going and some of the implications related to adoption. In this panel, we'll talk about like what's happening now, and which is a reflection from what happened last several years. So first, I wanted to introduce Mahesh. Mahesh has been recently with Zoom, and he is an AI innovator who led the development and launch of Zoom's flagship AI companion suite, now used by 8 million businesses, tens of millions of knowledge workers worldwide. Mahesh joined Zoom in 2022 via acquisition of Solvvy, a leading conversational AI platform that he founded. Prior to Solvvy, Mahesh founded and guided 2 prior B2B companies to high growth and successful acquisitions by Fortune 500 companies. Please welcome Mahesh. Eleanor is a leader in AI-driven partnerships and data ecosystems. Her background is in data science and psychology. As a founder of BranchWorks, she helps companies build high-performing partnerships driven by AI. She has led partner programs at Fivetran, Blue Prism, and Global Sourcing Association. She is in London, so as an EMEA Global Chapter, she also leads the Partnership Leaders, which is a pretty large organizations of various types of functions in the partnership management space that participate in that space. So welcome, Eleanor.
Thank you.
Pat is a leader at Abrilio. He manages the Salesforce practice at Pat. Pat was also an MD at Salesforce before Abrilio, and he is right in the middle of deploying, we heard the word POC from it, whole bunch of POCs for agentic platform for Salesforce. So we're looking forward to having his feedback on this. Welcome, Pat.
Thank you.
And finally, Heather, a friend of mine for almost 15 years.
I was 12.
And Heather is a leading expert in IT channel strategy and partner ecosystems. She is a founder of and CEO of a company called Channel Maven. She helps businesses optimize partnerships. She works with a lot of enterprise companies, so she has a very good idea of where the ecosystems are going. She also founded an AI company which was acquired by a company called 360 Insights, and she was SVP of marketing there. Before that, she worked at Dell and Upland Qvidian. So please welcome Heather. In the last panel, we essentially talked about the framework where the research is going, where education investments are happening. We talked about adoption, and we of course talked about some of the hindrance to adoption, especially tied to data governance. But it is happening now, despite concerns in enterprise. We see applications that are user-specific, may not be cross-process or cross-functional specific, are getting highly adopted to simple things like Grammarly or GPT, or even for this event, some of you may got annoyed in the end, but you saw 8 versions of email that evolve over a period of literally 3 weeks. It was all based on generative AI. Looking at who is clicking, who is reading, and we went from a 2% open rate to a 16% open rate, and most of the subscription registration really happened over the last 4 days. And we know we're in the middle of sales kickoff, so people were not paying attention. So if we had a little longer run, and if we had a little more data to play with, possibly you would get a lot less email and a lot more personalized, right? So it is happening today. So from an enterprise perspective, we are seeing a cross-sector adoption in certain tools that are not working, but there are certain other tools that are absolutely working. And so I wanted to start with Mahesh a little bit about what you did with Solvvy and how you enabled Zoom to really brought in conversational AI, because we use a lot of those tools today from a collaboration perspective.
So when we founded Solvvy, nobody was talking about AI. In 2016, 2017, when we started building a conversational AI system for customer care, customer support. I think we built the first large language model on BERT for CX in 2017, Google BERT. And at that time, it was an enormous amount of work to build and mount a model that worked, and an application that worked on a model. I think it was 100 million parameters, which is like a pebble. It's like a grain of sand now in an ocean compared to what ChatGPT or OpenAI does. But the idea was still the same, which is to be able to understand conversational intent in a natural language setting, be able to answer questions that a business would have, and so on. And we built a B2B SaaS business based on that. Companies like Amazon, Autodesk, on and on, Under Armour, et cetera, utilized our platform to basically solve your issues for you in the customer support. This is all prior to ChatGPT. So, and then in 2022, we were about to raise a big round of funding, and Zoom came in and made us an acquisition offer that was interesting, and things went pretty quickly, and we ended up being part of Zoom. The idea was for Eric Yuan, the founder of Zoom, the idea was to get into contact center business, and which is now 2.5 years later is become a really, really big business very fast. And we brought the virtual agent capability to the contact center suite. But 6 months after the acquisition, in early 23, Eric saw ChatGPT coming, and he saw what was going on, and he basically said to me, look, we're a $4 billion business at the time. We have very, very little AI in the business other than your team. But Microsoft's coming, this is coming, OpenAI. I want you to help turn the company into an AI-first company. And so the genesis of that was basically, he said, what do you need? Tell me what you need. And I said, if my goal is to make Zoom an AI company, the job is not to build a center of excellence where a few people know about AI. It's to make everybody in the company think AI first. So I said, give me a small team, but give me the wherewithal to operate with anybody in the company however you want it. And that's how AI Companion started a journey. Between January of 2023 and September of 2023 when we launched, I probably spoke to, I don't know, give or take 1,500 CIOs, CXOs, and so on at companies before we launched. So to understand what are they looking for in governance, what's adoption curve, what are their concerns, what's the pressure from the board to adopt, what are all the things they need. And so lots of folks like Ed and others who I probably spoke to during that time to understand what the need was. And what we were trying to do was to build an application that had the best aspects of Zoom. Everybody who uses Zoom knows it just works, right? The 3 words about Zoom, it just works. But take that and put that in AI in there to bolster that and make it better in a very competitive market against the likes of Microsoft. And so we launched AI Companion in September of 2023, and it was, I would say, it's probably about 50% of where it is today in terms of quality. But we rapidly worked, iterated fast. We shipped a lot of improvements, and we released it to 12 products by January, February. 12 different Zoom products: Zoom Phone, Zoom Chat, Whiteboard, et cetera. And we basically then had the adoption curve. And I'll just say one thing on the adoption curve that'll set the tone for some things that I'll talk about later. The first 12 months, we had about 1 million businesses adopt AI Companion. In the next 90 days, we went from 1 to 6 million. And so I'll talk more about why that is and what happened and what's changing in the world to do that. So think about that, 12 months, 1 million. The next 3 months, we get 5 million more. And so the idea is to put AI right into the flow of work. But initially what we did was we started by putting it in single applications. Meetings, meeting summary, meeting notes, ask meeting questions, create a whiteboard, transcribe your phone calls and, summarize and prioritize. Now we're moving into the next dimension of being able to do tasks that bridge across your day and across multiple applications, not just Zoom applications, but also third party, and we can talk more about that. But that's a little bit of the journey, kind of from going from old AI or first generation AI to now generative AI.
Awesome, thank you. So Eleanor, I have a 2-part question. I know you work with a lot of mid-market companies that you're helping them to build go-to-market through a partner-led network. But you have also worked in enterprises before. So talk about adoption, not just from size perspective, what you're seeing in that part of the dimension, but also talk about from Europe. What does US look like? Like, what are you hearing? And what's actually happening in Europe from an adoption-wise, or what are the barriers you think are there?
I'll answer the second part first. So I think that what I see is that the US are very innovation-led when it comes to AI, and Europe are more ethics-led. So we like the innovation and we like to utilize it where we can, and then it's okay, how do we make this more ethical? What does it mean for the people? For me, there's definitely a a what and a who to everything, and the what is around the technology, and then what does that allow the who to do? Like, what impact does that have on the people? And I think Europe are a lot more stringent in the use of technology, looking at what the impact of that is on the people, on the who. And I think in terms of the comparison on, enterprise companies versus mid-market companies, I think the enterprise companies there's a lot more restriction as to what the people can actually then do with the technology, right? If you're bringing in AI tools, if you're bringing in transcriptions or call recording softwares or anything like that, that utilizes AI, in mid-market companies, there's a lot more freedom and flexibility as to what these people can do with it. Like, there's not enough AI policies in place at these mid-market companies yet, whereas in these more enterprise companies, they have all of those in place. So the people are more limited, and probably rightly so, as to what they can do with AI tools, whereas mid-market companies are just, the people are out there using AI technologies in some cases a really, really brilliant way, and some cases that could end up breaching things like GDPR in Europe.
Awesome. So Pat, kind of coming back to you, Salesforce is a global leader deploying across the world. And when you're doing these POCs in enterprises, maybe their deployment also happening in Europe and other parts of the world. Kind of walk us through, where do you see tractions? Ed mentioned about running POCs. You and I did a podcast together. You talked about a bunch of use cases. So maybe you can take one or two and talk about, in this go-to-market and maybe customer side also, marketing, sales, and customer success area, where are the POCs running now, and then bring in sort of the global deployment dimension.
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity, and excited to be here. I have been with Salesforce, as I think Saugata mentioned, and then I'm fortunate enough to be on the global SI side with Brilio, working with Salesforce. So as some of you may know, Salesforce came up with, they have some models out there like Einstein, which kind of are smaller models with prediction and scoring, etc. But the real leap came from Dreamforce back in September of 2024, where Benioff said, big, bold, I'm ready to change the name of the company, or he's contemplating changing the name of the company to Agentforce. So there have been some releases post then, obviously in an MVP fashion, and the first release came in Service Cloud, so Agentforce for Service in early October, and then came Agentforce for Sales in mid-December timeframe. And then there would be Agentforce for other products, like marketing and commerce, and each of them has some use cases built in. Obviously, you have to understand this is the first release, so it's definitely not, it's the tip of the iceberg, as we tell our clients. So what we have seen when they came to us and says, you guys are a summit partner, would you be able to help kind of be the change agents, be the transformation guys for us and help adopt? And obviously, you have to be kind of sales as well for us, because you have to tell the customer what we have released and how can that makes the most business sense for the customers, right? So what we took first is Service, and Service has right now 3 use cases. Service has order summary, Service has FAQ, and then Service has account summarization. And when we started talking to a lot of our customers, we saw what we heard from them is we would love to have our service centers, call centers, be more personalized. Obviously, that's where summarization comes in place. We'd like to, we have gone through our, kind of ticket notes. And I've done analysis and seen a lot of our tickets are just kind of summarized into like one bucket where they keep asking the same questions, which actually can be referred in FAQs. So if you can digitize the FAQs, then we can deflect, right? That's a big ROI, is basically called deflection and first call resolution of any customer service, organization. So we look at those two, and then can you create an agent that can basically resolve customer queries in that area. And then if they want, they can always say that I want to talk to a live agent, and we can flip to someone, So summarization, FAQ, and some order, management, response is what we have seen so far. That's from a service standpoint, and then from a sales standpoint, what we have seen is, sales coaching, predict, kind of opportunity scoring, and then next best action, called kind of summarization of notes. If you're trying to reach out to a CIO of one of your biggest opportunities, do you remember all the information about that account and the information, and what really makes the summary, and how do you use your sentiment, right? If you are a great friend to the CIO, you don't need to say, sir, you can say, hey man, how's it going? So sentiment and summarization and next best action. So it does all for you. And if you really think about someone who's, kind of organizing all of the data, it might take them hours. And this just takes minutes. So send an email to Sagato, who's my client, and I'm sitting on a $5 million opportunity, and I want him to tell me when he's going to when we can meet him for a coffee and when we can talk about the next kind of budget. It's just done like that.
And we'll come back to these use cases, and especially how you're selling it, how you're convincing people. So let's go to Heather. You work with a lot of enterprise, and you of course work with partners.
Yes.
So when you look at maybe 2 or 3 large ecosystems, whether it's Microsoft or AWS, and several folks are from there, or companies like HP, even smaller mid-market companies like HubSpot, what are you hearing from the partner side, and how do you see the brands aligning themselves, either educate or give them offering, going to this notion of getting them ready to sell to the CIO organization who may be sitting back and say, I don't think you guys are ready yet. So what do you see happening there?
I mean, I'm just going to put on my marketing hat and not necessarily, if the partner organization is ready to do marketing, which I think Eleanor and I know is not always the case. So from a marketing perspective, I think we all know of ChatGPT, and someone very smart, not me, I can't remember who it was, said, ChatGPT and generative AI are not going to replace the writers who use it. They're going to replace the writers who refuse to use it. So getting incredibly specific with generative AI is really important. First of all, I never use it as, hey, just write me a blog post and then take the blog post and post it. I think of it as an outline or someone to ideate with me or some sort of like jumping off point. But you also have to get super specific. So one of my favorite prompts is, please write me a blog post about XYZ topic in the voice of Ryan Reynolds from Deadpool, 1, not 2. And make sure that you don't add any F-bombs. And please make these 3 points. So then it spits out the blog post, and it sounds like me, because I tend to sound like Ryan Reynolds from Deadpool. 1. And then it's just something to start from. I probably use about 30% of what it actually handed me because it's either wrong but at least I have a way to ideate. The other ways that we're using it in marketing are just generally helping our teams work better together. So understanding what the product marketing person is trying to get from the content marketing person is trying to get from the demand generation person. And then also on a personal note, as a mother of 2 girls who have dyslexia, things like Perplexity and Speechify are at least getting them on even footing. And as somebody who was undiagnosed until she was 44 with dyslexia, I know that I'm going to save tens of thousands of dollars in therapy on my children. So I'm super appreciative of that.
Thank you. So let's talk building on the adoption and usage. You went through this incredible journey from 1 million to 6 million users. What happened?
So I think first thing is to understand Zoom's business, because it'll explain what I'm going to say next. Think of the Zoom business in a 2x2 matrix, right? Think of it as small business, online, small business, individual, small businesses that are buying Zoom, and then you have large enterprises. The $4.5 billion or $4.7 billion of revenue is almost evenly split between those two. So that's interesting, right? So you're going to get very large enterprises, Fortune 2 bank, down to a single solopreneur who's using Zoom on the one hand. And then you have very horizontal applications. If you think about the 2x2, you think horizontal applications and line of business. Horizontal applications are all of us we're all knowledge workers. We use meetings, we use chat. We're just using it as general purpose. Then you have line of business, contact center. One of the things I oversaw at Zoom was our Gong competitor, which is focused on sales and go to market. We might have marketers who are using it for a very specific purpose. So think about that 2x2 box. Now think about adoption curve, and I'll give you an example that'll illustrate this better than anything else I can say. One of our customers is a Fortune 3 bank. We were giving them we were rolling out AI Companion to them, 175,000 employees. It took 17 meetings over 12 months to get them to bless, and we were not charging them any additional dollars, so there was no additional spend. It took them that many meetings to bless the adoption and the rollout. Ed probably had something similar with NJIT. That same Fortune 3 bank, when we went to them with a contact center solution, it took us 3 meetings, 1 month, same AI stack, same technology, and they made the decision to adopt it and run it in a matter of 6 weeks or 7 weeks. Why is that? Why the difference, right? And I think they'll tell you why the difference is. The difference is that, first of all, those line of business applications are mission critical. Somebody's banging on the doors. If sales have to happen, sales and service, to Pat's point, there's enormous pressure. The boards, you got to hit the numbers, you got to things. That's number one. Number two, there are established benchmarks. This is the key piece. Established benchmark for performance in those things, that if you can prove that you can move the needle on those things, average handle time, first call resolution, these are all well-established principles. So if your AI product, tool, technology platform can come in and impact that in a tangible way, and you can prove it in a POC, people are ready to move. They're willing to overcome other objections and move everybody around, because the legal department can be looking at 25 applications, but yours gets to the top of the pile for the review and the approval. So that's number two. And the third thing is that the people who are running those operations have a lot of power. But what's happening now is a lot of that power is shifting to the CIO. So Aaron Levy, the CEO of Box, said famously last week, he said, the CIO is going to become the new HR for AI. That we're going to go to CIOs and say, I need an AI co-worker for my sales team. I need an AI co-worker for my finance team for invoice processing. And the CIO is going to have to either build it or they're going to have to license it. So I think the one piece of advice I'd give to everybody is start understanding how to become friendly with the CIOs of your customers and your things, because they're going to have a lot more power in the next 3 to 5 years, and they're going to become, your friend or your enemy. So I hope that helps, because there's a big difference between line of business applications and very horizontal use cases. But that's why it took a while to get to 1 million, and why then it took off is because we put it right in the flow of the work for the knowledge worker. You're already doing a meeting. Getting the note takers and the summarization and everything was a natural for us. But even then it took a long time for companies to go through the governance and the regulatory and do it. And we had to do a lot of work to scaffold all the protections and everything to get them comfortable enough to say, yes, I want to turn it on for everybody. But in sales and service, it's like, if you have the solution, they're willing to go.
And we'll come back to this sort of the cross-functional adoption and the issue with the silo-based data that you talked about. How do you build access and then governance, and we'll come back to that. But going back to your Eleanor, so when you think about sort of the partner lifecycle management, especially a mid-market company that's trying to grow, they have to recruit partners, onboard, enable, co-market, co-sell, et cetera, right? Where do you see in that journey AI tools, and what kind of tools do you see are getting used today?
I think in partner acquisition, absolutely can support. It's similar to an SDR function, right? If you're doing outreach to lots and lots of people, lots of companies, then it can absolutely support in that. I think that AI has the power to make us more human. And as a business psychologist, I'm always looking at the human element of it, like what is it allowing us to do as people? And I think so often we can get wrapped up in the technology that we forget what it allows us to do as people. And I think partnerships there's so much to do in partnerships. You just listed a small percentage of anything that a partner manager has to do on a day-to-day basis. Partner teams are getting smaller and smaller, and they have more and more things to do. So how can we bring AI into that part of the process to take away some of that load to allow the people to connect? Like, partnerships is all about us connecting as human beings. How can we use AI to allow us to do that? So I think when it comes to, use outreach to, new prospective partners, what the messaging could look like for that as well could be that AI could really be used to support that. And then when it comes to that partner management, like I said, it's taking away some of the down admin that people don't want to do and speeding up those processes so that people can connect more as humans. I think where I see it in partner management processes as well is around the call recording softwares and the things that, I didn't even realize I was using a call recording software, and every time I get an email in my inbox, I kind of half ignore it, to be honest. I think it's just going to be a summary of my call. And then I looked at it the other day, and it was preparing me for my next call. And it was saying to me okay, you had a call with this person last week. This is what you talked about. Here's the summary. Here's your preparation for this call. So I was able to get on the call and say, oh, how did it go with your son's recital last week? Or how did it go with this? And it allows you to connect more as humans if you allow it to, and if you are utilizing it well. Whereas I think so many of us can get into the habit of, I know I have, of using AI to be lazy, or to, do some of the stuff that I don't want to do, and then not replacing that with human connection. So I think if we use it to do the stuff that, takes our time away from connecting, and then replace that time with human connection, it could be super, super powerful. But I think the risk is when people use AI to do rather than to learn, or rather than to give them time back. And I see this a lot with younger people, especially. I think for all of us in the room, we've learned, Heather and I have spent a long time learning what it is to be great partner leaders, to be great partner managers, what it is to craft great messaging to new prospective partners, what good partner management process looks like. So if an AI tool tells us to do something, we know if it's wrong. We are seeing what it's outputting, and we go, actually, that's probably not correct. Let me tweak that. Let me take 30% of that, and let me then go away and do what we need to. Whereas younger people that are coming up now, instead of using AI to learn, they're using it to do. And in doing that, they might then not be putting the right information back out there. They're saying, okay, do this for me, do this partner acquisition process for me, do this messaging for me, do the partner management for me, but they don't know if the information that they're getting back out is right or not. They don't know whether to use 30% of it, 50% of it, 70% of it, and that is where it could break down relationships. Because
and to some extent, happened to us, and that's why I went back to the example last 3 weeks that some of you may receive too many emails, because we were on the fly. There is data in there that tells you what people are clicking on, what they're going. So 3 things changed. Our subject line changed, our body copy changed, our landing page changed. And we saw an exponential engagement and then based on what you registered for, we changed the panel agenda. So it is a lot more personalized, but we also bugged it too many times. So the danger, one of the things that's being written, and possibly, Raj knows about this whole notion of, Jason Lemkin at SaaStar talked about the proliferation of XDR technology, where you're going in and trying to personalize, and someone who hasn't thought things through, they're blasting their customer base repeatedly, trying to get to a point where they will engage, but it's actually going the other way. So when you think about this powerful tool that Salesforce is rolling out, and they have one of the largest market share, so should we all be afraid of our email box for the next 2-3 months or years? Or how do you think that personalization is positioned in a positive way that it doesn't become an annoyance?
Yeah, I think you bring up a great point. I mean, we are all sales folks at a certain point in our personas in different angles. And so when you really think about, Mahesh and I spoke earlier today, what do I talk to Mahesh about? What do I bring up in the discussion? What would connect me with Mahesh or any of us is basically hyper-personalization. And the point is, we are not there yet, but I think AI will help us get there, because the amount of data that's out there and the amount of data we can scrape from from the web, from similar personas. So if you do a horizontal analysis of someone, kind of lay over a predictive model on top of it, and then say, okay, this guy is the CIO. He has traversed the journey through these three companies. This is what this person is expecting to do this year or this quarter, and how can I bring my capabilities and offerings in a very personalized fashion to say, I can help you this quarter, this year, and next year. It's not just a sales pitch. How do I do that with marketing automation and bringing all of this together in a very succinct format, in a way that hits a person and says, wow, I like this. I would like to spend 15 minutes. We are all constrained on time, right? So having a CIO spend 15 minutes when a BDR sends an email, that can be an agent BDR. My point is we have to train our agents to scrape data and make those hyper-personalized pitches, right? The future is out there. We are not there yet.
But what I'm hearing from both of you, though, that it's an incredible, powerful tool, but we can't use it the way we used a simple, dumb tool like email. So it's not like using a bunch of things, just repeatedly sending out.
Yeah.
The time that it's freeing it up, instead of binge watching Deadpool, I should possibly step back and look at the data, analyze. So when I do reach out, it is personalized, and reduce the number of touches so we can be more effective. Is that what I'm kind of hearing from?
Absolutely, right? I wanted to bring this up. How many times have we all called a 1-800 customer service number and had to go through the same voice prompts? And it's extremely, like, we cringe. Like, have I had to go through everything? I mean, my address, my number. I mean, can you do a voice, kind of authentication? I'm calling from the number that they know is the number. So how are they able to personalize that, right? And then just tell me, I've been clicking on the web to see how am I going to return this order. Can they pick up the phone, do an omni-channel, kind of data connection and say, I saw you do this, can I help you return this order? That itself is such a productive leap and help you retain customers and bring loyalty. It's exponential. I think we have to get there, but we talk about all the digital platforms and data and all the CIOs talking about, I know my customer. I don't think we are there.
So talking about calling, another real example for this event. 5 years ago, when we ran events like this, 60% of our registration came from telemarketing on outbound. Can you guess how many registration came from outbound this time? Zero. Everything came. Now, I do agree, we overreached to you on possibly email, but a significant portion of you came from social. So when you think about the partner ecosystem, the demand gen in the partner ecosystem has been lunch and learns, wine and cheese, drive butts in the seat, just dial, get a telemarketing firm. So when it comes to partner marketing, that part is dead, right? We made 6,000 calls. We did have a BDR reach out using an XDR, AI SDR. We could dial out 400 calls in over 2 hours, which used to, at the most, we could do 100 calls 5 years ago. Our touch rate were roughly the same, but conversation, data, cleanliness, they were the issues that got in the way. But on the other side, search and social, other part was spot on. So when you think about the partner ecosystem go-to-market, about 2% of contra revenue, whether it's Zoom or anybody else, they spend on partner marketing, right? So you take a $6 trillion IT system, 2% is spent on market development funds. And almost 2/3 of that market development fund is driving people into events like this, hoping they're going to generate leads. What happens to them?
I think companies need to get smarter about what they're approving MDF for, or BDF, as we know, business development funds. So no more golf events. I know, sorry, we're like at a golf course. I'm totally not preaching to the choir, but golf events, our partners are bringing their 3 best friends and, HP's paying for it and they have a really nice lunch. The things that you should be thinking about to enable your partners are allow them to use things like AI agents that can connect them with prospects on LinkedIn, so that when they post about an event or they post about a campaign or they do some sort of outreach or drip campaign within LinkedIn, they have more of the right connections. AI agents can align, I'm from Boston. Anyone who says to me, oh, you're from Boston, I'm like, yes, who are you? How do you know? It personalizes it so much more for me. If they mention the Patriots, even better. Sorry, I know I'm like in a room with New Jerseyites. I'm just making friends left and right. But the other things that you need to think about are your company. We all used to do SEO and the partners used to do SEO. Now you need to start feeding the AI information about your company so that when someone says, what's the best company for laptops, that the agents or AI bots are feeding you the information about your company. So I'm starting to feed information about Channel Maven because 15 years ago when I started it, people would search channel consulting and we were the first thing that came up because it was in our URL. That's not happening anymore. So thinking about feeding AI tools information about your company. And then also enabling partners to do things like digital ads and geofencing and stalking their prospects wherever they are.
So going from feeding information, if you go back to that 17 meetings, 9-month sales cycle, I'm not talking about the second wave of adoption that happened faster because they had ROI metrics. If you think about front end of that sale, selling into someone like Ed, what is your reflection on how can you cut that time down in an enterprise sale to go drive this adoption? Because with the level of investment that's coming in, there's a lot of people that are going to call to those CIOs.
So I think three things that I can specifically point to. Had a meeting with the CIO of a public company, and the public company person said, I really appreciate the fact that you didn't tell me how much time savings productivity your application was going to do, because I have 286 vendors who each claim they're going to save 2 hours a week per employee, and based on what they're telling me, I don't need a workforce. In fact, I don't need anybody because they're all saving me 2 hours a week, and if I just believe all of them. But the reality is all of those 286 vendors are at the door trying to get in and knock on the door, Ed, to try to get in. And so the lesson, I think, is be very clear and crisp as to what the metric you're going to move are, and don't just go for the generic. Be able to prove the metric you're going to move, number one. Number two, I think, is be able to understand where you're going to intercept the workflow of the user, and where the data actually sits. So I think a lesson for everybody is AI models are very powerful. The AI agentic capabilities are coming on really fast. The data infrastructure is actually really poor. And so the ability to get your data clean, and you all have controlled that, right? You can tell your salespeople to make sure the CRM is up to date and clean. The more time you can spend there, the better your applications will be using the AI. But when you're selling into businesses, understand that their data is likely to be unclean. So you have to help them to get over the data chasm in order for your application to be valuable to them. So if you speak to them about that, because they're not going to tell you that, but in the back of their mind, they're thinking, this application sounds amazing. I wish my data was good enough to use it. That's what they're actually thinking. So if you can help them get over that and say, actually, you don't need all your data to be clean. I actually have some tools and techniques to help you get your data to the point where my AI can operate on it. And here's a proof point I can deliver for you in the first 3 months. I can move this metric from here to here. Here's my roadmap for the 9 other metrics I'm going to move for you, but here's the one I'm going to move for you, and I'm going to prove it to you. I'm going to give you a way to test it without putting the business at risk. The tension in the room goes down. And so I think that those are the things I would say are really critical. The one thing you can steal, because we did a lot of work on this and it's publicly available, is we did a security and governance white paper for AI Companion that we made public. It's available to any of you. If you go look at AI Companion white paper security, you'll see it. And we did that deliberately because the more you can lead before you even walk into the meeting with materials that they can look at and that are very crystal clear as to what your policies are. Companies are interested in 3 things. What are you doing with the data that my users are giving your system? Is it being used to train your models? If so, how so, and what are they doing? What are you doing with the outputs of the data? So we produce a meeting summary. What happens to it? Is it secured? Who has it? They want to know what you're doing with it. And the third thing is, what third parties are you using, and what rights and permissions do you have over that? Because most of us are going to use multiple models underneath. We're going to use Anthropic for something, OpenAI for something, and something else. Well, the business doesn't care what you use. They just want to know that they're protected. So the more you can be very crystal clear in writing, very clear about how you're using the data and that. And so you can go all download the white paper, and if you have businesses, replicate it, build your own version of it, so that you can lead with that and go to a customer and say, I've already thought these things through. Have you looked at this? Please, before we meet, can you just have everybody, legal, privacy, whoever's involved, please look at what we have and send us the questions in advance so I can bring the right people to the meeting and we can solve in one meeting all of your questions. Otherwise, you're going to get 5 meetings with 5 different groups asking you the same questions. Put it in writing, send it to them in advance, have a productive meeting. And you can go online and grab that white paper for yourself. We spent a lot of time on it, so you don't have to.
So I'll come back to Eleanor and Heather on sort of, especially from an ecosystem perspective, we talked about third-party integration. So we'll come back to the ISV, but I want to go to Pat for a second. So Pat, just listening to Mahesh, are the adoptions easier if it's user-specific and not cross-functional? Like, where are you seeing the POC traction? Is it more like the way Dropbox adoption happened, that I go upload a file, I'll share with somebody, but it is not a collaborative workflow that I need to get marketing and sales and customer success all aligned? Where is the traction? Is it a point solution specific, or is it more cross-functional specific?
Yeah, and as I was listening to Mahesh, it's really, couldn't agree with you more. And what you described is also kind of personalized selling, which makes your pitch stronger, personalized, and easier for the client to adopt, because they're like going all over the place while you're talking to them, right? So back to your question, right now, at least from a Salesforce Agentforce perspective, the use cases are point rationalizations, right? So it's not across the board. Now they have Data Cloud, which is for folks who are not used to the jargon. It's basically a data lake, which is supposed to pull the data from Salesforce and non-Salesforce applications into creating the data model that basically helps an agent answer kind of very smart way, but in questions that may not be siloed to an application. So right now we are seeing that it's more point solution. It's action oriented, but it's still kind of only CRM or only service, right? I think we are going to see far more cross-functional, enterprise cross-functional applications with agents, right? And then we are going to see super agents who are going to sit on top and going to coordinate with different application agents and going to talk to them and coordinate with them and reason with them and have the memory so that they can take a little bit of time. But it's like running a team, right? So is it going to happen? Yes. Is it going to happen in 2025? And at what point of time? We don't know. The future is there. The opportunity is there. I think what you talked about from enterprise, is, a lot of customers are looking at Crew.ai or, some of these multimodal platforms and not just agent like Salesforce, because their data lies in so many different silos that they're like, I don't want to invest in Salesforce to build my enterprise agentic layer. It just doesn't make sense. Data doesn't lie in Salesforce, right? Data lies in so many different corners of my ecosystem that I need to think about a much richer model that sits on top and then pulls the data from CRM when I need to. But this model needs to sit on top. Yeah.
So if that is the scenario on the adoption side, let's come back to the partner side, right? Traditionally, whether you are raising Series A or Series B to build your go-to-market, or you're a mid-market company, your dream has always been, I want to go after these large partners, carry my product because they have distribution, right? But if AI adoption in larger organization is more complex across silos, data cleanliness, governance issues, etc. So as a mid-market company, am I better off focusing on the tail of an HP or a Microsoft versus trying to go after their bigger partners because I can enable like 100 ninjas there with AI tools? So does my go-to-market strategy now changes because the weapon or enabler would be slow to adopt in large enterprise, therefore this long tail, I can turn that and move my product much faster. What do you see from that dimension? Either of you.
We have 7 hours to answer, right? It depends. It depends on the types of partners. It depends on the product. It depends on so many things. So I guess I would back out of that and say, think about what you are bringing to market. Who else could bring that to market? And yes, working with the enterprise is much more challenging than working with the mid-market. I'm going to air my dirty laundry. We were just talking. I was like, what's the longest payment terms you've ever seen? Because I just signed a very large deal yesterday. 30 days, mid-market, 120 days from submitting the invoice with the PO that takes 30 days. So next summer, I will be getting paid. I think it depends on the technology and is it sitting on top or is it actually integrating with their technology?
But let's kind of build on it. So let's say we have two products, two extremes. A transactional product that just sold on its own, it's not part of a solution stack, right? And then you got something which is like a French fry or a Coke attaches to a burger, some sort of a middleware or some other stuff. So if you take those two dimensions, if I'm trying to build a go-to-market motion with the partner side, in the old days, you would focus on, let's get this GovEd SI that has huge distribution and it can move a lot of volume, a lot of value, right? My question is today, if those SIs or those partners are gonna be slow to adopt AI and have less effectiveness versus smaller guys, 5, 10, 20, 30% shops that can increase substantial productivity, reach, personalize, train their rep, where should I focus on as a brand from a velocity-wise?
So I predominantly work in the mid-market space, and I work quite heavily in data and AI ecosystems. And if you want to build a data pipeline, you need anywhere between like 3 and 9 technologies really like plugged together in order to get data from, a system like Salesforce to a place where people in organizations can actually view it, play around with it. Now what we're seeing is with all of these data products that are plugging together, be it an integration software, a transformation software, warehouse, governance, security, all of these different things, they're now overlaying AI onto these technologies to make it more business friendly, to make allowances for people to go in and actually query their data in natural language. I could go into a lot of these systems and say like, hey, can I have a report of XYZ? And because these platforms are very, very niche in what they do, I typically recommend that they work with smaller consultancies. Not probably the smaller as like 5, 10 people, but I do recommend they go for more like regional systems integrators rather than the big 4. I do recommend most of the time that they work with smaller companies because they are moving at such pace, the technologies are moving at such pace, they are partnering together. Customers are thinking, well, there's so much out there, I don't even know where to start right now. And these smaller consultancies have the agility and flexibility to not only skill up on all of the new technologies that are coming out and the adoptions of AI on top of those, but they also have relationships with many of them and can move at pace, whereas the bigger consultancies just can't move as quickly just because of the size of them, and they're much less likely to adopt a new technology quickly, whereas a smaller SI can say, okay, yeah, you want that technology, let's bring it into our technology stack, let's train a couple of people up on it, and we'll get moving. These bigger SIs just cannot do that just because of the sheer size of them.
So using your word technology stack, right? So Forrester, Gartner, they're all talking about, at a minimum, even in mid-market, you have 7, 8, 9 different technology stack to complete a motion, right? Business motion. So, and in that play, ISVs play a huge role. So the evolution of marketplaces, when we look at whether Azure, AWS, Zoom has a marketplace now, Salesforce App Exchange. What are you seeing from a velocity perspective Investment-wise, we're saying there was a great TechCrunch article last year that said we have to start thinking in the age of AI, not software as a service, software is a service, because of these complex niche problem that we're going to go solve may not have huge market share, but it'll be very valuable and sticky. So instead of 100,000 SaaS company, we're going to have 1 million software is a service company. So we're going to see proliferation of adoption powered by agentic things that are very, very domain specific, right?
Yeah.
So from an app marketplace wise, how did you address that in Zoom? Because you have grown quite a bit. How should companies think about that dimension?
Let me just take one step back that'll inform the answer. Think about where the first wave of generative AI was about content generation, information synthesis, information generation. What you're now seeing in 2025 is task completion. So the movement from information content generation to full task completion means I have to do a few things, right? And the foundation models are getting better and better at understanding your intent. When you say, hey, I file a ticket for me, it's understanding that might be an IT service ticket. If I'm using Jira, I'm using ServiceNow, it can make relationship, I can understand. It can say, file a ticket for Jake. I can understand that Jake works for me by looking up a Workday API and understanding that Jake is in my organization. There might be 5 Jakes, but only one works for me, so maybe they can make that presumption. So you're getting closer and closer to being able to have models and AI be able to actually get to the steps of business process and task completion across multiple systems in your organization. I have Workday, I have ServiceNow, I have Salesforce, I have pick another 15. But I send an email and I say, hey, do this, this, and this, and it parses that, and it can then go call those APIs, come back and say, and maybe have to negotiate with me to say, you didn't tell me Jake's last name. You have 2 Jakes working for you. Which one do you want to answer? You want me to create this for, right? All of that is an orchestration layer. In 2025, you're going to start to see applications that do that. One of Raj's companies, actually I met with yesterday, a company called Lena that is doing really interesting work in this space is doing that. You can take a look at what they're doing. But when that happens, what that means is for partnerships and partners is you're going to have to think about the interoperability of task completion. So you're going to have to be, the idea of being in an app ecosystem means Zoom has an AI companion, Microsoft has Copilot, Glean has an AI assistant. You want to build task completion assistants that sit inside that. Like Workday is going to have an assistant that sits inside Zoom, sits inside Microsoft. So if you're a reseller or you're a partner, what you want to understand is, where do I want to help the customer to their digital transformation? You got to sit there and say, what platform is the customer using? What are the third-party applications that they can plug into today? And how do I, as a reseller or a third party, help them get the most value out of that stack? So the stack question is a good one, but it really starts by saying, which stack is the customer using? And what's already plugging in, what are the plugins, if you will, that already work in that stack, and focus on helping them execute that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so maybe you can, on the SI perspective, you can talk about a little bit yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so talking about, somebody brought up Satya Nadella and death of
CRUD,
SaaS.
yeah.
So to your point, if you kind of think about these as agents, kind of like micro agents, you're basically talking about the orchestration of micro agents. So you're basically looking at functions of maybe a customer day in the life and what you're really needing. And the point that if you're really bringing the logic to the agents, then you really need SaaS, because everything is orchestration. The logic is with the agents of Workday and ServiceNow, and that's where the business logic lies. That's probably agent as a service rather than the backend being just CRUD databases. That's where I think it's going to go. Is it going to take 20 years? I'm sorry, I can't agree with you on that. I think it's going to go faster than that.
So, but if you go back to App Exchange, right? How is Salesforce addressing, because it has close to about 100,000 apps,
Yeah.
right? And those are all business apps. They're not consumer, like Apple iStore, App Store. So how are you seeing as an SI, when you go to the Salesforce, App Exchange events and others, how are they communicating? How are they aggregating? How are they training you, teaching you the governance of the data, the issues, other thing that they're talking about when it comes to ISV marketing wise?
I think they are, I haven't seen a lot of kind of focused governance there. I think they're saying make sense of what the customer wants and how you kind of use that marketplace. So I don't think I have deep insight into that, Sugata, unfortunately, at least in that area. We haven't worked deep into that. I know Sumit is here. He also is a colleague from Brilio. Sumit, if you have heard that question, I don't know whether you have a point of view there. Not to put you on a spot or anything, but.
This, right? Because customer, as someone was saying, in an enterprise, at least my personal view is in a scaled enterprise, I've seen an enterprise customer or a user using at least 20 different applications, right? It can be Workdays of the world and these and that, right? So while App Exchange gives you so many different things, right, from a business standpoint, from a Salesforce standpoint, the way they are trying to look at it is, okay, if I have my service clouds, or sales cloud and or the other clouds, right, the experience clouds, is it a plugin or an adapter, whatever you might want to say, is it really seamlessly integrating with my clouds? And now with Data Cloud as a bigger play, they want to have almost everyone integrate to the data infrastructure of the company, right? So I think with AI, right, as a forefront of Salesforce, I think you will see a lot of consolidation of those App Exchange apps that you might have, right? I was talking to Ed just after his view. I think the way we will consume AI, no longer we are going to click through multiple pages, right? Natural language, voice is coming bigger, right? Enterprise search, Glean, Mahesh, you said. I actually have done at least 3 Glean implementation in last 6 months, right? At scaled enterprises, right? They're drastically changing. AI is being adopted and even consumed, right? I think there's a lot of nuance right now, but I feel that there's a huge transformation on what you want to build for App Exchange marketplaces, and also a big consolidation on the players right now on App Exchange. So I'll leave it there. Thank you.
So Elena, coming back to you, maybe through the European lens. Most of these tech companies are American companies, but when it comes to the ISV ecosystem, there's a very large ecosystem. The platform players are American companies, but the ISV ecosystem, at least 30 to 40% of them, depending on sectors, are European companies. So are you hearing from an ISV marketing-wise a different messaging, different targeting, or it hasn't evolved yet? What are you seeing in Europe when these platform players are going out to Europe trying to message to the ISVs about what's happening with Next Gen AI?
I don't think I see any difference in messaging. Actually, a lot of any ISV that starts in Europe, like as soon as I start working with them, within a couple of years, if not less than them starting their teams, they're looking at how they can expand out into the US. Like even if they are born out of Europe, they are constantly looking about how they can go into the US, just because it's such a brilliant market. So I don't see a difference in the messaging. I think one of the things that I've started to talk about more and more with my clients, and I think it's the same in the US as well, is that with these ISV technologies, it's the importance of talking about what comes before you, what comes after you, because all of these ISV technologies are very, very niche in what they do. And I think if we're talking about marketplaces and, the consolidation of these technologies, which I'm sure will happen at some point, but right now, while they're also siloed, it's like, okay, what does your technology, amplify in the technology that maybe comes before you in the stack or that's around you? What is it allowing the technologies that come after you in that stack to do, and what value does that add to the customer? Because I think at the moment everyone is just, when you think about marketing, everyone's thinking about themselves. What do we do? But actually, what does your technology allow everyone else to do, and how can you come together more effectively? But I don't think that messaging is different in Europe and US.
Okay, well, at the end of the hour, it flew fast, but I would like to hear from each of you a category or an app that you think is a killer app that's going to break up. So anyone can go. While you're thinking, we're going to have 3 questions, but if you have to guess, it's okay to be wrong because it's about the crystal ball.
Can I talk about one to stop using?
Yeah.
Anybody who has AI create their headshot for LinkedIn, please take it down.
Yeah, I saw that.
Please stop. I just out of curiosity had it do one for me. I have 2 irises in one eye. And as much as I wish I had a chin clef, I have one. I don't, but AI gave me one. Maybe it heard me say I wish I had a chin clef. Stop. Don't do that. Thank you.
I have one that I like,
Yes.
actually, but I really like that. Thank you. There's a technology called Genie AI, born out of the UK. I know the CEO, but I actually really like the concept of using AI tools to support small businesses, especially with things like legal advice. Like, I have a lawyer on retainer, of course, in case I need one, but actually allowing small companies to use AI to scale without needing a ton of senior staff is great for me. So I'm always looking for ways as a small company where I can utilize AI to allow me to grow without the need for very expensive hires.
I'm going to say the personalized digital assistant of the next version is going to be killer app. You talked about regional SIs. I'm a regional SI. When I step into the next event, I'm going to use, ideally, a personalized digital assistant, say, how can I make my day more productive and how can I hit my numbers? Because if I knew this, I would have talked about it in yesterday's dinner. So that's the thing. How do you really make most out of an event like this? How do you know who your background and who do you want to connect with in this room to make this day most productive is the killer digital assistant app.
I'll give you one that I'm very sure will be a big deal in 2025, is digital avatars used in marketing. So I'll give you 2 examples, one simple, one more complex. The simple example is we have a product called Zoom Clips. If you use Loom or anything else, it's a competitor to those products. Today with Zoom Clips, I can upload a video of myself talking about a topic, large language models, and then I can write that text somewhere, and I can have the voice lip of my recording speak that text. I can instantly say, produce this for me in 13 languages. And actually, when it speaks it in Japanese requires longer for me. The voice lip has to change because I'm speaking Japanese, but it also takes longer to express the same thought. The AI is able to extend me 12 seconds as opposed to 8 in English and do that. Imagine you're a small business and imagine that every week you want to do an update. And now think about channel marketing. You're doing updates all the time. I don't want to upload a video. I don't want to sit there in front of the video screen, and I want to do it globally to your global audience. I can write copy. I can just press a button and have my digital avatar create an update every day. I can schedule it to go out in an email every Monday to every one of my channel partners in their native language and do it. This is possible today. It's going to happen in 6 months. It's going to become very prevalent. The second thing, which is I spent 20 minutes about 2 weeks ago talking to a digital avatar created by a company. For 20 minutes, I spoke to this founder's digital avatar. He wasn't there, but it was like a conversation. This is a company called Tavis, T-A-V-U-S. There's others like it, like Synthesia. And I could do amazing things. I took out my AirPods, and I said, what am I holding? And he said, hey, looks like you're holding AirPods. Looks like you only have one. Did you lose the other one? Then I said, hey, tell me something about what I'm wearing. And he said, hey, looks like you're rocking purple today. And this is it's his face and his thing, and he's moving. And I said, well, tell me something about purple. What is purple? And he started going on and on about purple is the color of the Roman Empire, emperors, blah, blah, blah. I said, stop. I don't want to hear the history. I said, tell me about your company. What's your pricing model? What's your API status? How do I get access? I asked him a whole bunch of questions, answered every single one of them in a completely conversational way without latency. It was midnight, okay? Think about all your businesses, how you're marketing. People want to engage with you. They want to understand your product and service. What if you could create a digital avatar of yourself that knows everything about your business and could actually communicate to all the potential buyers? This is going to happen. Right? It's a little creepy. It was creepy. But guess
a
what?
lot creepy.
So Mike, the June event, we live stream in 150 countries, right? And using the avatar. So
Yeah.
And we're all going to have AI photos as the
of
panelists.
Heather. So we're gonna wrap. So let's take a couple of quick questions. I don't want to go over because lunch is being served. So 2 questions. Anybody?
They want to eat. They have 0 questions.
Yes. Go ahead, Richard.
Partner ecosystem. we've talked a lot about selling to an enterprise. And let's think of a two-tier distribution model with a manufacturer, a distributor, and a reseller, and an end user. And the phrase I'm taking away here is the interoperability of task completion. And if we're trying to solve an end user's problems, the reseller may be better at the assessment, the manufacturer better at design, a distributor better at the implementation, an MSP better at the follow-up. How do we orchestrate all of these people? Right now, everyone's elbowing each other to get their share of the services. What do you see as the challenge and the opportunity in this collaboration? And what do we have to do with AI to get there?
I mean, that's like a layup for Zinfi, right? They all need to have Zinfi, and then.
Yes.
But I think one of the best example of that is we talked about, what Ed in the first panel is that the user data and going back to, from an application perspective, whether it's sales or marketing or partner, most of the relationship that we do with partner today focuses on top-tier partners. And when you look at these long tail, they're kind of neglected because corporations don't have really bandwidth to support. So if you think about this concept of digital avatars, right? From a service perspective, will people be happy with just avatars? No. But from a day-to-day, hey, where is my license key? Where is my this? How did the pricing change? All of those interactions, I think there's a huge opportunity to serve the partner. And an average partner carries 40 brands. And an average partner gets somewhere between 600 to 800 emails per month from their vendors. Just think about an agent summarizing and saying, hey, this is what HP is doing, that's relevant for you. It all goes into a box. So there's a huge opportunity in the partner collaboration space to cut down the communication, personalize, give them 24/7 access in their language, right, for the product that you just launched yesterday. It takes 6 months, about a third of the channel, to find out what you launched 6 months ago. So there's so much waste in the channel, right, when we go to market. A lot of that can be saved and scaled. So as Heather said, we possibly need 7 hours for that, but we'll hold another event in June. Very likely we'll be in the other side of the bay because there's a lot of alums and a lot of people reached out saying, can you please hold it on the other side? But we're also we have a podcast series with NJIT and the speakers like them. So you can go to our website. We've given out a page. Please take the survey, at least the top square. It's very, very important that we put these things together in the right way. But thank you for coming. A big hand to the panel. And lunch is in the back.
Thank you.
Thank you.